this is a big win for the Trump administration today. The travel ban had been so contentious, going back to the president's rhetoric on the campaign trail when he called for a ban on all Muslims entering the United States of America. The question here in Hawaii versus Trump was whether or not the current edition, the third edition of that travel ban, was in effect a Muslim ban and therefore against the Constitution of the United States. What the Supreme Court is saying here is that no, the current ban is fine. One of the reasons why the administration had argued that the current ban was fine was because they added a number of countries to the ban that were not Muslim countries. North Korea and Venezuela had been included in that September 2017 version of this travel ban. So the Supreme Court is saying that that ban is fine. I want to read you from the opinion here, which has been written by the Chief Justice, John Roberts. He's saying that the government has set forth a sufficient national security justification to survive what they call rational basis review. We express no view on the soundness of this policy. We simply hold today that plaintiffs have not demonstrated a likelihood of success on the merits of a constitutional claim. So they're saying the judgment of the Court of Appeals is reversed and the case is remanded for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. So this will be wind under the sails of the Trump administration. We can expect to hear the president tweeting or talking about that later today, I would imagine, because this backs up his argument that in expanding that travel ban to some non-Muslim countries, it made it very clear, the president has argued, that this was not a Muslim ban and therefore legal under U.S. law and under the Constitution. The Supreme Court agreeing with him here today, guys.
You know, Eamon, if you go back, of course, to the initial ban itself, if I remember, it was to be done over a period of time so that they could undertake an investigation of better methods to make sure we were clearly vetting people coming into the country. I mean, it's been a long time since the original ban. Any update at all on sort of new policies that might replace the ban itself?
Well, they've issued a number of versions of this ban, right? So they've issued that initial one, which had a time clock to it. We've well passed that time clock. There was a second version and then the third version back in September. So the question is, now that this is upheld, what the administration is going to decide to do with it over a longer period of time. And there may be some nuance in this opinion. This is a 34-page opinion that I'm just reading 3 paragraphs of. So there may be some nuance in here that will affect how this plays out going forward in terms of the lower court challenges. But right now, the administration has said that they have the authority, the president has the authority, to ban travelers from certain countries on national security grounds, and it appears that the court is siding with him on that. So we'll see how all this plays out in the lower courts and then over at the Department of Homeland Security.
The decision actually does look at some changes, David, in policy. They mentioned, for instance, that in January of last year, 3 Muslim-majority countries, Iraq, Sudan, and Chad, had been removed from the list. Other tweaks like that. By the way, it's Roberts writing for the court, joined by Kennedy, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch. Kennedy and Thomas with some concurring opinions, and then Breyer, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ginsburg with dissenting opinions.
So I guess, Eamon, the upshot is they rejected the challenge that it was discriminatory, right, against Muslims. And also, I would think that this has pretty big implications for presidential authority and presidential proclamations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. There were 2 arguments here that the state of Hawaii was making. One was that the order overreached the president's authority just generally, that he didn't have the authority to do what he said he wanted to do. And then the other one was that the travel ban violated the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. That's the clause that prohibits the establishment of any official religion and also bars the government from issuing any laws that prefer one religion over another. Those arguments seem to have not held today. Ultimately, we'll see where all this goes. But this is a big political win for the president at a time when he is very focused on immigration as an issue, not just in terms of right now, but looking ahead to the November midterm elections. The president and his team will see this as a big victory politically as well as legally.
Yeah. Some of the language, Eamon, pretty interesting. For example, quoting, plaintiffs challenge the entry suspension based on their perception of its effectiveness and wisdom, but the court cannot substitute its own assessment for the executive's predictive judgments on such matters. They're giving the White House quite a bit of leeway in deciding what is national security.
One of the arguments, when this was argued back in February, one of the arguments that came up was who ultimately is it who decides when there's a national security emergency in this country? Is it the President of the United States? Is that rightfully a job for Congress, or should that play out in the courts, was raised And the court has been suspicious of that argument for a long time because the courts and Congress don't move in a time horizon that's fast enough to deal with a real emergency that's unfolding in real time. There were arguments back and forth on this point, but ultimately they're giving a lot of deference here to presidential authority, Carl.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.